Hello, my name is Andy Sun. I'm an activist and a musician and a writer. I sometimes go under the name Lady Merlin. I'm very honored to be here. And before I begin my testimony, I would like to acknowledge the amount of privilege that I have to be here to speak with you today. I've been asked to speak on racism, and what I would like you to know about that is that every person of color experiences racism in a different way. I only speak for myself today, but I hope to give you a message that will resonate. In acknowledging my privilege, I realize that I have the education level to be able to speak at a way that I can express what I'm going to. I also want to acknowledge that I have the ability to take off work to be here today to speak, and not everyone who suffers from racism has that ability. Thank you. Oh, finally, I use she, her pronouns. I have recently socially transitioned this past year, but my testimony comes from a time when I did identify as male, and that'll give you some clarity for that. When I was 18, I realized I'm not attracted to other Asians. I am attracted to men, but mostly white men. And I am Asian myself, and I'm really struggling with seeing my own beauty in the mirror. If I was honest with myself, I could admit I hated myself. But I wasn't able to be that honest with myself at that time. What's up with that? It's funny how a single question can unveil layers and layers of societal conditioning and bias. I let myself sit with that question, that uncomfortable question. What's up with that? I sat with that uncomfortability for a very long time, for weeks. And when the truth started to come, it didn't drip. It came pouring. Of course, I'm not attracted to Asian men. I grew up in the United States. I've never heard the term handsome or beautiful applied to Asian men. Asian women? Sure, they're sexy. White men and women? Yes, handsome and beautiful all the time. Black men and women? Occasionally handsome and beautiful, but you're probably weird if you admit it. Asian men, though, in popular culture have traditionally only been allowed two roles: comedians, martial artists. Think about it. So without ever realizing it, a racist view had been deeply ingrained into my subconscious, to where I could not find Asian men attractive. And why? It's not just the labels people use. It trickles down into the physical traits of the people we praise as handsome and beautiful. For men, we look for a strong jawline, a straight, lean nose, big, beautiful eyes, and sharp cheeks you could cut diamonds with. And you know what? All of these traits are almost entirely Eurocentric genetic traits. Sure, other races do exhibit these same features, often as an abnormality to that race. But most of us have our own genetic traits. I have a plump nose, big cheeks, and a small, appropriate to my size, set of genitals, for those of you who watch porn and praise size. And that is handsome. That is beautiful. Once I realized not to look for white, Eurocentric traits in non-white people, I was finally able to find other Asians and people of color more attractive. I was able to find what's beautiful in other races and appreciate people of those races for that. I was a racist. To an extent, I still am a racist. I have deeply ingrained racism through being raised in the Midwest, through being raised by loving but fearful parents, through watching television and movies, from reading books, including the Bible. If you have one takeaway from my speech today, I want you to never say these words again. I am not a racist. And especially not, I am not a racist, but... Here's the thing. Most likely, like me, you have racist tendencies. This does not mean you are not a good person. It doesn't mean you're not educated. It doesn't mean you're not trying, and it does not mean you should step away from the social justice work. It does mean you need to always ask the question, what is my role in this work? How do I lift up other voices, especially the voices of minorities? In what ways am I biased? In what ways am I still conditioned to be a racist? This is definitely a let he who has not yet sinned throw the first stone kind of practice. I'm not about to throw any stones at you. I'm not here to judge you. Instead, let us come from a place of love, of acceptance, of compassion. Not just an outward expression, but an inward one. Let's not think of ourselves as too proud or mighty to learn from each other. Instead, let us love each other as wholly as we are capable of. Thank you.
Someone's hurting our sisters. It's gone on for far too long. And we're not going to take it anymore.
I come here before you as a person of faith, a minister in a local congregation who sees her country, which some like to label a Christian nation, living out less than Christian ideals. Every day brings us news that distresses. News of explosive devices being sent to prominent politicians. News of the administration seeking to erase the identity of transgender people in our communities. News of tax laws being written to further deepen the divide between the wealthiest among us and the rest of us. We have a president who mocks sexual assault survivors, who lies with unapologetic ease, who demonstrates a complete lack of compassion for any other than himself, and who has crowds of people cheering him on as he does each of these things. It is a distressing time in our country, and we have lost our way. Costs of living are on the rise as wages remain stagnant. Wealthy individuals and corporations have way too much influence on our elections, an attack on our democracy. This is not the America I dreamed we could be. Our Statue of Liberty features the words penned by Emma Lazarus, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shores, send these, the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." The light of that lamp is being snuffed out. Seeking asylum is a human right, and those who are attempting to claim that right are being labeled as hardened criminals. The xenophobia running rampant on our airwaves and in our country right now is nothing short of alarming, and it is 100% contrary to the way of faith. Leviticus 19:34 tells us, "The alien who resides with you shall be to you as the citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt." Leviticus isn't the only place where we find this in Scripture. There are dozens of verses about caring for the alien and the stranger to communicate the truth that no one is illegal in God's eyes. As a Christian minister, it is important to point out that the one we call Savior was himself a refugee when his family had to flee violence while he was just a baby. If Egypt had had the same policies of Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump, Jesus himself would have been taken from his parents and his father would have been labeled a hardened criminal. Thousands of parents who are desperate for a better life for their children have had their children ripped from their arms when they reach our border, a place they thought would grant them safety. The United States has willfully separated parents from their children with no real plan for reunification. Our country has lost its way. There has been an increase in race-based and youth-targeted voter suppression tactics across this country. 33 states have enacted some sort of voter ID laws that have served to disenfranchise voters of color, the elderly, the disabled, and those who do not have the financial means to obtain an ID. People have fought and died to make it possible for every citizen of age in this country to vote, and such measures fly in the face of their sacrifice. Our country has lost its way. Over the past several years, the Republican majority in the United States Congress has sought to repeal the Affordable Care Act, succeeding through legislation with the help of some Supreme Court decisions to gut the ACA, resulting in loss of access to affordable health care for millions of Americans. And now those very same Republicans have the audacity to run on such things as protecting those with pre-existing conditions and providing for the needs that would have been covered by the now gutted ACA. If this isn't the sheer height of hypocrisy, I don't know what is. Numerous state legislatures, Missouri among them, have failed to expand Medicaid coverage so that over 2 million Americans fall in the coverage gap, unable to obtain insurance. Our country has lost its way. 59 people were killed in a mass shooting in Las Vegas. 26 people were killed in a church shooting in Texas. 17 people were killed in a school shooting in Florida. Mass shootings continue to pepper the headlines on an almost daily basis. And the response time and time again is thoughts and prayers, but little action. Our children are drilled on how to act in the event of a shooting because it has been accepted that it is a very real possibility in our schools. These drills traumatize our children as young as 5, 6, and 7 years old. Precious children traumatized because our leaders refuse to act. Our country has lost its way. When the president can harass and demean women reporters who are trying to ask him questions at a press conference without consequence, our country has lost its way. When the president can mock a sexual assault survivor to laughter of his adoring supporters, our country has lost its way. When the president responds to clashes between Nazi sympathizers and counter-protesters with "there are good people on both sides," and somehow finds it difficult to call out white supremacists, our country has lost its way. There is a lot at stake in this upcoming election. There has been systematic dismantling of protections for people of color, for transgender individuals, for immigrants, for the environment, for the poorest among us. This is not the America I dreamed we could be. I was listening to a news story this morning that reminded me that a lot of people will say that they put up with this because they are pro-life. But let me tell you, all of the data shows that policies centered on reducing poverty, providing access to equitable education, providing access to affordable and quality health care, and providing access to birth control all serve to reduce rather than increase the number of abortions in this country. If someone claims to truly be pro-life, including Republicans who often draw on such language, they should support such policies instead of constantly fighting against them. And it is well past time to highlight that perhaps the most important pro-life issue of all is to acknowledge the reality of climate change and the very real impact and threat it carries for all of our lives, because to not do so will literally kill us, which is the least pro-life position of all. Now, I dream of an America where pro-life means valuing the dignity and sanctity of all life. Black, brown, and white, rich and poor, gay and straight, male, female, non-binary, young and old, immigrant, refugee, or citizen. In America, we should want more democracy, not less. I dream of an America where every vote counts, where voting is made easier, not harder. An America where voters, not money, decide our elections. More democracy, not less. I dream of an America where each of our voices are heard and our vast and varying experiences and perspectives are taken seriously and not dismissed because they don't line up with the dominant narrative. More democracy, not less. An America where a person can support their family when they work full-time and not have to take 2 or 3 or 4 jobs to make ends meet. An America where we all have access to affordable health care, where an illness or an accident won't bankrupt us. More democracy, not less. I dream of an America where women are believed. An America where black and brown bodies are not disproportionately incarcerated and gunned down by police. An America where our children are safe in their schools. More democracy, not less. I dream of an America where compassion is the guiding force, where greed and power are kept in check. I dream of an America with more democracy, not less. Who's with me?
Someone's hurting our country and our faith.